This is Jets FM on the OFN. The 2020 season is complete. Thank goodness. 2021 is here, and we have been pumping up this green skies ahead slogan now for about a month. So I hope we're ahead of the curve. Adam Gase is gone. The head coaching search has begun. And that's what this show is going to be about. Jan Levine will join me again sometime in the next week to kind of put a little bit of a bow tie to the 2020 season and take a look ahead at the roster and coaching decisions and things of that nature. And who knows? I mean, it does look like it's going to be a long search. And I certainly hope so, because of the fact that we haven't yet, for whatever reason, heard about any college head coaching interviews. I don't get it. I mean, unless you're interested in someone from Alabama or Ohio State, what's the holdup? And I certainly hope they're looking at college, because that means you're looking at head coaches, and there are some good ones out there. We'll get into that later. But we had an opportunity to listen to Chris Johnson, his end of the season press conference, and of course, Joe Douglas. So we're going to get some sound as far as those interviews are concerned. And again, this is basically about the head coach search, the beginning stages, and what we think about, bottom line, our feelings on what we think the Jets are doing and hopefully what they will do. So let's start with what Chris Johnson said in his press conference. And boy, he shouldn't do many. He's out of his comfort zone. He's obviously not a football guy, but let's listen to what he had to say. Let's just take a little bit, because we're not going to. It was about a half hour, 45-minute interview, and I'd say about half of it was just. Let's just put it this way: if I was going to play you the entire press conference to get just about every important key detail of what he said, and let's say it was a half hour, okay, I would probably play about 10 minutes at the most. There's just a lot of stuff in that interview that was just boring. All right, this is the most interesting thing I thought he said.
We want a head coach that coaches the entire team end to end, and his staff. This is going to be, you don't have to be offensive, you don't have to be defensive. This is a coach for the entire team, and that's very important to us looking forward.
All right, so we knew that was the deal. Well, you guys know that that's the case, because if we did the show on Monday, maybe you wouldn't have, but you knew by Tuesday. So this is now old news about Chris Johnson. He wants somebody that could run the entire team. All right, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we go back now. See, nobody really, and I get it, we're not going to get into Gase much in this program, but I just want to look at the dynamics of what happened this season with what his desire is for a new head coach and how he came to that conclusion based on Gase, his last coach. So at some point during the season, I don't know exactly when it was, but we know approximately when it was, when Adam Gase decided that I was going to step back, I was not going to be calling plays, and I was going to try to overrun more of the team. I was going to try to be somebody that was no longer delegating, but overseeing everything. And that it was interesting. Now it's interesting because of what Chris Johnson just said. Where did he come up with this? Okay. Because when you interviewed Adam Gase for the job, you knew this is how Adam Gase coached his football team. Okay, you knew Adam Gase was going to go after Greg Williams specifically because he was going to let Greg Williams control his own side of the field. So where did this come up? Was it Jaime? Was he the one that made the suggestion? I doubt it. I don't know where this came up. I'm not saying it's a wrong conclusion by Johnson. I just find it interesting that somehow, at some time during the season, he felt that in order to have a successful head coach run this team, they had to be able to run the entire team. And the way Gase handled it is not the way that he wants his head coach to run the team. Okay. I don't know where that comes from, though. And I'm a little bit worried about it because, look, I don't get how you, and by the way, I've said this before, and I am stating it right now. I am 100% at today, right now, today, which is January 7th. I am 100% on board with looking for a new head coach. And I say today because I got to find out who the head coach is. But I am definitely on board with finding the new head coach, the new direction. The organization needs it. And I think part of the reason the organization needs it is because of ownership. I just think that, see, Christopher Johnson comes in here and he hires Adam Gase and he calls him a genius. And he gets recommendations from Peyton Manning, a Hall of Famer. I mean, just take a look at what Bill Belichick said over the past week about Adam Gase. So the players play hard for him. There's a lot of people who like Adam Gase. They feel that there's a lot of good qualities about Adam Gase. But I think what the problem with Adam Gase overall, what it ended up being is it's not the right time for him to be head coach. He needs a lot more seasoning. I definitely believe he's going to be a head coach either in college or the pros at some point again. It's going to be a while. He'll get a quicker opportunity to be a head coach in college for sure. But he's not going to be a head coach in the NFL for a while. And considering how well the younger players played for him, it may not be a bad idea for Adam Gase to be a head coach college. Really would. I think that actually might work for him. But getting back to the reasons why, you got a guy that you talk up. You got these guys talking about how really qualified he is and so forth. Then all of a sudden, this comes up about not being able to coach your entire team. And I'm just a little bit worried about that I hope is not going to be a big deal when it's all said and done with finding the next head coach. I don't understand where the conclusions come from. I just don't, because I don't think in actuality, I really don't think it comes from Joe Douglas. Take a look at what's going on in Cincinnati. They're going to go on year 3 with an unproven head coach who's never had any success as a head coach. He's only been a head coach for 2 seasons. He's about to go on his 3rd. And the Bengals are okay with bringing back their head coach for a 3rd season, who record-wise is a lot worse than Adam Gase. But they're going to bring him back for a 3rd season. Okay. Well, why did that happen? Who knows? But I think it's important that when the Jets hire this next coach, and I don't think there's any question, even though Joe Douglas has stated, yes, the final decision comes from Chris Johnson. If Joe Douglas says, this is the guy, okay? I'm telling you right now, if Chris Johnson overrides that and picks like Joe Douglas's 4th choice, we will find out pretty early in the process about whether or not there's friction between Joe Douglas, the coach, and the ownership. It's not going to be something that is going to be able to be swept under the rug. We'll find out. I just don't think that's going to happen. All right. So I'm okay with that. Feeling pretty confident, again, that Joe Douglas, who is the guy that I am putting all of my hope and everything that I feel confident about the rebuild here, that the right guy is running the show. And that is Joe Douglas. And yes, the owner has the final say. Okay, whatever. We don't really care about that unless the owner gets stupid. Unless the owner starts intervening and thinking that he knows more than Joe Douglas does. Okay, fine. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I'm not going to believe that that will happen. Fine. But we have got to stick with the guy. Now, I might, and that's actually why I feel the way I do, where I'm not 100% sure that I'm for this, or I am now, but will be after we find out who the coach will be. Because if it's somebody that I have no confidence in, here's the issue. I believe whoever the next coach is, you have got to give him a shot. You've got to get him a legitimate chance. You cannot fill the roster with crappy players and then blame the head coach. How did Bill Belichick do this past season? When all of a sudden, he didn't have talent. Not too good, huh? Didn't even make the playoffs. Okay, so, I just, you have to have players. You have to assist the coach. All right, so, and I want to be able to see at some point when there is a little adversity, first season, second season, I want to be able to hear a little bit more rah-rah out of the owner, coach, GM, specifically more GM. I really don't need to hear much from Chris Johnson. I just don't. But I got to have Joe Douglas defending his guy. I really do. I mean, and that's got to be something that takes place. If there's going to be adversity. Hopefully, there won't be the type of adversity that we've seen over the last couple of years. But if there is any slow start, okay, I just got to see it. Got to see more of that. Can't be hiring coaches for 2 years and giving up and going to the next guy. If you get this next guy right, and that's why we're going to go into the list of guys, the candidates. We're also going to go over my top 3 and explain why, if you choose these guys that I'm thinking about, especially my top 2, and there are a couple of other guys that are on the list that I'll point out. You choose those guys, you have to give them, without question, at least 3 to 4 years, at least. Okay, because those guys will earn it and deserve it. And to tell you the truth, I don't think those guys are coming on board unless they get it. Not to say that you can't fire a guy to fire a guy. Okay, now, let's talk about next Joe Douglas on the head coach search, what he's looking for, basically, in a head coach.
Joe, do you have did Ozzy ever, or did you ever have any experience in head coach searches before in any way, shape, or form, even if it was minor?
Yeah, the kind of last time I've been around a head coaching search was just on the outside, was when I was a scout in Baltimore back in 2008 when Ozzy hired John Harbaugh. So it's been a few years.
All right, that was actually more about his experience, and we don't have the tape about how he's going to go about doing it, because basically he's talked about it in the same way he believes how he scouts players is how he's going to scout for head coach. As far as this, the reason I wanted to play that is because I think it's going to be important in my mind for 2 guys that I believe could very well be the head coach of this football team. And 2 guys that I would give the thumbs up for to be the head coach of the football team. All right. He talked about the only time that he has experience in the process was Baltimore early on. Here's what's important about that. Number 1, the head coach was John Harbaugh. Okay? Who's John Harbaugh's brother? And we're going to get a little bit more into that later, but who's John Harbaugh's brother? All right? We know who that is. Also, as far, and like I said, we're going to get into this guy a little bit later when we talk about my list of candidates, but John Harbaugh was a special teams coach for most of his career. Slid over to defensive coordinator for a year, or defensive back coach, I think it was actually, for 1 year. Then got the head coaching job. Special teams coordinator, head coach. Okay. Who is out there right now that has the resume and has been a longtime successful special teams coordinator. That guy. Okay? Dave Taub. We're going to get into him a little bit later on. So I just think that that's why I wanted to play that, because I think you always look for the links. And there's another link that we'll talk about when it comes to Baltimore, but that's more of an obvious link. Okay? I'm not going to get into that, though, for just a little bit. Okay, so now I would like to talk about some of the candidates being considered for the job. And this coach was just interviewed, Eric Bieniemy. I have given my thoughts about why I do not want Eric Bieniemy as the head coach of the Jets. After hearing this from Joe Douglas,
We're looking for a person with great character and integrity.
There is no way that this guy can be head coach. Okay. Now, Eric Bieniemy has definitely proven over the years that he can stay out of trouble. I don't think there's any doubt that the reason why he hasn't gotten a job yet is because of his past. Okay? Has nothing to do with the color of his skin. Has to do with his past. And I also don't think, from what I hear, he's a great interviewee. That's what I'm hearing. Throw in the fact that you have a guy that has a checkered past. And is this really the time over the last few years? Is this what this country's been going through? Is this the time to hire a guy like this? Now, again, he's going to get a head coaching job, and he's going to be a head coach if he wants one this year, no doubt. One of these teams, I'd be shocked. Now, Houston has already backed out, but I'd be shocked if one of these teams didn't offer him the job. Okay? If nobody offers him a job, then we really know that that's a big issue. But Eric Bieniemy, and that's why when I've talked about him already this season, and I say I don't want to roll the dice with Eric Bieniemy, is because to me you're rolling the dice with Eric Bieniemy, and you're also rolling the dice with other guys who we'll get into in a little while that I just don't think this franchise can do right now. There's no way Joe Douglas can do this. Okay, because Joe Douglas has now been around for a year and a half, close to 2 years. This will be his second draft. He's got a 6-year deal. Once he reaches that 4th year, 2 more years with this next head coach that he will choose. If this guy doesn't succeed, Joe Douglas is more than likely gone. Because if the coach doesn't succeed, then chances are it's because the players are also not working out. A combination of the two. And maybe even Joe Douglas can get the right players, but the coach is not getting them over the hump. Maybe they're 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, but because again, this is something that I have backed up actually. Talking about Adam Gase the last year and a half, 2 years, is tell me what he has not done right during games. Clock management, this and that. We really have ripped Jet coaches in the past before about a lot of in-game blunders. Adam Gase, for somebody that has a poor record like he does, doesn't have a lot of blunders when it comes to in-game strategy. That's not the knock. Okay, so how do you know that the next guy that is hired won't all of a sudden we'll start seeing some of those blunders stick out again? Oh, how can he do this? How can he keep screwing around with throwing the red flag and timeouts being, we didn't have that timeout. He wasted it on this. That was stupid. And he's not doing this right. And how do we know? Maybe that happens. The team is winning 7-8 games. Remember, the Jets won 7 games in 2019. They didn't win 2 games. They won 7 games, 7 or 8 games, whatever they won. They won a lot of games for a bad, crappy team. They weren't 2 wins, 2 wins. Okay, so they won. They were basically a 500 team. They were an average football team last year in 2019. So what happens if this team is now average and an average the next 2 years, and the coordinator does a lot of bumbling things that just stick out, and maybe he gets press conferences and he says things that are just ridiculous, or he's not communicating well with the media. That guy could easily be looked at as the problem. And I don't think, I mean, Joe Douglas would have to, I mean, there is no way that Joe Douglas will not be in hot water if that were to happen. Maybe he would get a shot to hire that second coach, because he didn't hire Gase. Maybe he could get that shot. But the bottom line is he knows, Douglas, that he has got to get this right. Not just to save his job for the next few years, but he's got an image. This is what he wants to do for a living. If he wants to be a successful general manager in the NFL, he has got this franchise set up in a way that a lot of franchises don't get set up, as far as cap space, draft picks, things of that nature. He has a lot of expertise as far as scouting. He is setting this franchise up so perfect that he has got to get this right. He has to get the head coach right, because he's going to feel confident now with all this draft capital that he's accumulated over the past year and a half that, hey, now if I just get the right head coach, we're off and running. He has got to get this right. And he is not going to take chances. That is why this guy, in my opinion, is somebody that you'd be taking a chance with. Now, this guy, this next guy that we're going to talk about cannot and will never be the head coach of the New York Jets, Marvin Lewis. I respect the Jets bringing him in to talk to him, because he's had a pretty decent record as a head coach. He's a very highly respected defensive guy. I have no problem with bringing him in to talk to him. But this is the New York media. These are the Jets. There is no way Jet fans are going to approve Marvin Lewis as the head coach. There is not a chance. And getting back to Chris Johnson, there's no way you're going to convince me that Chris Johnson wasn't swayed about PR with Adam Gase. I think if the fans viewed Adam Gase in a positive light, minute he was hired, and they were all for it, and then fans were kind of wishy-washy, but they didn't hate him so much, I think there'd be a real good chance he'd still be here for one more year at least. But the PR, you hear Chris Johnson saying it all the time, how much he talks to the fans, and it's important for him to know what the fans think. And, I actually believe him. I know some owners might just say that, but I actually believe Chris Johnson when he says that. And I'm sorry, but yeah, it's okay to listen to the fans, but when you're listening to the fans, you should be listening to them about season tickets, about how you can make their experience at the game better. This is too expensive, whatever. You don't listen to the fans about who your head coach is, about players, coaches. No, 0%. You don't listen to them. No. He does, which is why Marvin Lewis will never get the job. Let's move on. Now, yes, this guy, Jim Harbaugh again. Now, as I mentioned, you got a connection with John. I've said this for the last few years as a Michigan fan, that I do not believe Jim Harbaugh is leaving Michigan, especially after bringing in the top quarterback prospect he has ever signed. He finally has his blue chip quarterback to run his college football team. He would have to be wooed beyond belief financially to come to the Jets. Wooed. Now, I think if Jim Harbaugh would actually consider coming to the NFL, I think this is the time. This is the team because of the relationship. John, his brother, knows Joe, highly respected, all that. And that's important. If you're going to have a guy that's going to be helping you to build a football team, you better have a lot of respect there. You can't just blindly take the position and hope that everything's going to go well. You don't have a relationship with the guy. So the fact that you have the timing, we talk about that in life in general, but timing is everything. With, okay, I'm in this position now, timing not going well, with my college gig. Timing, how's that going? Is there a job opening where, first of all, I'd want to go that is appealing for any reason? Okay, they've got a lot of draft capital. They have a lot of cap space. That's good. But really, most important too, do I get along with the guy running the personnel department for my team, my GM? That works. That fits here. Everything fits if Jim Harbaugh wants to leave now. I still don't think it's going to happen. Okay? But if he was going to do it, this would be the time that I think it would. If he doesn't do it, if he signs a 5-6 year contract renewal with Michigan, and because I believe that if he stays at Michigan, he is going to turn it around, and I believe he's going to. Step one is finding that blue chip quarterback prospect. Once he got rid of Don Brown, which was long overdue. So I think he's going to do it. So when I know there's people out there that they don't believe that. I do. So when he succeeds at Michigan with this new contract, if he stays, then he's not leaving. That's it. He's staying, and he's going to be old enough to. He's not going to want to get back. He's going to. And I don't think he's going to be overly successful to the point where he's going to be, we've won multiple championships. I've done so much there that I got to try something new. That would take so long, like say 10 years, 12 years. If he would achieve that sort of status, that he would just be at an age where he'd be done with the NFL. So I think this is it. I think if he signs this new deal with Michigan, I don't think he's leaving Michigan. He's there for his career. But if he's going to leave, I think this is the opportunity. So I am not going to rule Jim Harbaugh out just yet, but I still think it's a long shot. Okay, next, Joe Brady. Joe Brady's the young little whippersnapper who we've mentioned several times this season, now at Carolina. Coach Joe Burrow turned his career around at LSU to a national championship, made the kid who he is, helped to make the kid who he is. And he is getting some opportunities out there. I think there is a possibility, but just reminds me too much. I think it would remind Christopher too much of Adam Gase, that we went the young, hot, offensive quarterback guru guy. Didn't work out. He wants the guy to command. Remember? He wants it. That's also when we talk about some of these guys like, see, Lewis knows how to run a team. So that's another reason why they probably won't. Okay, let's talk to him. Bieniemy doesn't have experience doing that. Okay, so I don't think that's another reason why I don't think he's going to do it. He's gonna make the cut. And I also think it doesn't help that you have Matt Nagy, who I've said repeatedly was the better version of Bieniemy, and it's not really working out right now in Chicago. It's been okay, but it's not the home run that the Bears were hoping for. So I just don't think that it makes sense with Bieniemy either. All right, now let's get to the dude on the left, the wink on the left, Don Martindale. This is actually a guy that, if I had a top 3 of coaches that I believe Joe Douglas will put into his final 3, I think Martindale will be in that list. It's not in my final 3. I believe he will be in Joe Douglas's final 3. Now, if Don Martindale is the head coach of the Jets, I will give him a chance. He's never been a head coach before. He has been around. He's older. He's like, what, 57, 58? So I think he's at that point as far as in his career where he would be, I think he'd have that ability to run a team. The thing I'm a little bit concerned with, though, is that with any of these guys, it can't be about, oh, he's a great defensive coordinator. Because he's such a great defensive coordinator, then that's going to make him a great head coach. Well, no, we don't know that. Now, maybe Joe feels that way because Joe's been around him. And that's why I would give him the benefit of the doubt. But he's not on my list. The Wink thing is goofy. It's if they get off to a slow start, it's going to be painful to be a Jet fan. I mean, the things that are going to be said about Wink Martindale and New York Post is going to have a field day with him. I don't know. I mean, but I don't know the guy. So, but I think he's going to end up on the top 3. I just do. Okay. This coach, Saleh, absolutely one of the top guys, one of the top candidates. We have to look. He is definitely like Bieniemy. I think I would be shocked if he is not a head coach. He's not one of the guys. I'd be shocked. Even more so than Bieniemy, because I believe Saleh is going to be. I think when you look at it, Saleh is a much better candidate than Bieniemy. Now, the only thing he doesn't have going for him that Bieniemy has going for him is Bieniemy's got the offensive side to Saleh's defensive side. But Saleh, look, Chris Johnson, the Johnson family, they've had success. Their most success with Rex Ryan. Now, the welcome mat kind of wore out for a while. Being boisterous doesn't always mean that everybody is going to end up like Rex Ryan, though. You know, you can be boisterous. You can be one of those guys that is extremely animated on the sideline in your press conferences. But again, that doesn't mean you have to end up like Rex Ryan. Okay? The guy obviously knows how to coach defense, and I'm all for that. I really am. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I really like, just as like any fan, like the idea of finding the next offensive guy. I've always said this. I've said it my entire life. I've said it on the radio for 30 years. I'm a defensive guy first. I love the defensive side of the ball over the offensive side. Joe Douglas is a trenches guy. And I think he's going to look for a guy. That's why I think Martindale is going to appeal to him. He's going to look, and I think a Saleh will appeal to him. He's going to look for a guy that is going to try to build a tough football team. And if you have Saleh and Martindale, you have got to hire Saleh. You cannot hire Martindale because you know the guy more. Okay? Saleh has, 15 years on Martindale? Around that? I mean, that is, you just have to. I mean, if you cannot allow another team, if that's the direction you're going to go with one of those guys, you cannot allow another team to take Saleh. And there was something that was in the here, let me take a look at it. It was in the where was it? It was in the Post. Should have had this out, but I was kind of busy doing everything, setting this up. Let's see, where was it? Wait. Yeah, I think that could have been it. Yeah, here's one of them that I want to talk about. I've got it right here. Hold on. Let me set it up. Okay. All right. So this is from Brian Costello from the Post. Why Jets' job isn't as appealing as other NFL coaching vacancies. And I just did the show with Ryan Dunleavy, the Post, where he kind of echoed Costello in the order of which job was better. And the reason why most people believe that the jobs are better with Jacksonville, Houston, and the Chargers, because of the quarterbacks. That's it. That's all. But if you strip those organizations away from those quarterbacks, those are bad jobs. Those are organizations, Jacksonville, the LA Chargers, and Detroit. Not Detroit. And Jacksonville, the Chargers, and what was the other one I was saying? Jacksonville, the Chargers, and Houston. And those are dysfunctional franchises, or franchises that just seem to make really strange decisions with their GMs and head coaches. The only thing those three franchises have going for them are the quarterbacks. That is it. I'm sorry. I do not think that makes those jobs better than the Jets. And I was also in that article, I think it was. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Brian says there are major questions about ownership. Coaches and their agents are concerned about Woody Johnson's return and what that means. There are questions of how willing the Johnsons will be to spend in free agency, too. Some coaches worry about the New York market and unreasonable expectations for a quick turnaround. Now that I'm okay with. All right, I get that. But I am so sick of hearing the narrative that the Johnsons don't spend in free agency or even in coaching, because Joe Douglas said today, he said it, there is nothing holding back the New York Jets from spending what it will take to find the right head coach. Nothing holding them back. And as far as free agency, where is this coming from? I want anybody to show me the history of the New York Jets over the Johnson era where they have been frugal with money. I want to know which great player did the Jets decide not to target in free agency because you're just out of our ballpark. It doesn't exist. I don't know where this comes from. Okay, there is no proof of it. You could say what you want about how poorly they've done running the organization in other ways. I'm okay with that. Okay, I don't think they've been very smart in a lot of ways. But they are not cheap. Okay, get that out of the narrative of these guys, okay? Of the organization. It's sickening. Enough of it. So forget that. So when you're talking about a job opportunity available and you have the opportunity to go after Salah, then you have to do it. If you're comparing Salah to Martindale. And then you have to spend, and I think they would do that. So because I know, you even said it, you know that you can outspend anybody for the right head coach. Make sure that if you're going after that type of guy, that you then go after Salah over Martindale. I absolutely love this news about Aaron Glenn. Love it. Now, he's the long shot of long shots, but I love that too. Absolutely love it. He's a long shot. But it's so great that Aaron Glenn is a guy that has, there were some ups and downs through the Aaron Glenn time with the Jets, no doubt. But there were successes there too. And he's a player that Jet fans always remember well. Aaron Glenn and Darrelle Revis, the two best cornerbacks that ever played with the Jets. And, there's debate. But overall, I think most Jet fans believe that. And we know he's a passionate guy. We know that he's doing a great job in New Orleans coaching these kids up. I mean, Lattimore, he turned Lattimore into a top corner, helped turn him into a top corner. He has done wonders with players, late round, free agents, college free agents. He's done an exceptional job coaching the secondary in New Orleans. Everybody talks about the Saints right now, and the reason why they've been so competitive the last couple of years is not because of their offense anymore. The defense is now just as respected as their offense. He is a big part of that. He will be, and I'm actually saying, look, by this time already, I'm surprised that he hasn't been either offered a defensive coordinator position. And if he has, then okay, that's fine. But it's kind of tough to go from defensive backs coach, never been a coordinator or head coach, and then you're a head coach. That's kind of tough. It can be done, but it's just kind of tough. I think it's time for Aaron Glenn if you're not going to be a head coach this year, which you probably won't, I think the next, you got to get the gig. You got to get a defensive coordinator position somewhere, because that'll help your resume to take that next step. But Aaron Glenn is a guy that I would be, look, I don't know what the interview's like. I don't know what his connections are like as far as what is his idea of offense. And I think he would do a really good job on defense. I think that side of the ball would be just fine. But what are his contacts offensively, all that other kind of stuff? I don't know. But look, let's put it this way. Out of the Eric Bieniemys of the world, the Don Martindales of the world, guys like that have no head coaching experience, if you're going to hire someone, one of those guys, I would much rather it be Aaron Glenn. Okay, next up, let's get to the top list. And I know this is probably, I don't know if you say an unusual number 3, but a wild card number 3, and that is Dave Taub. And the reason why Taub to me is right up there with Martindale. And I know Martindale is going to get the edge because of Joe Douglas. But if you take a look at Taub's resume, it is better than any other assistant coach that will get interviewed during this offseason that has never been a head coach before. Look at this guy. He has been the premier special teams coach in football for 15 years now. And he is, and it's because of his ability to communicate, motivate. I love the fact he's a native New Yorker. I love that. This is a guy that automatically your special teams is going to be awesome. Okay, so you got that. So I'm not saying I don't like our special teams coordinator, but this guy is elite. All right, this guy is at the top of the hill. So that's, and he's got a great eye for finding kickers. And that right now is a big issue for us. So special teams, he'll help us find the kicker that we're looking for. Yeah, those are a couple of things that are also positives. But you're talking about a guy that it's shocking has not been given an opportunity to be a head coach right now. I mean, what is he doing wrong in the meetings? What is it? I don't get it. I do not understand why he has not been interviewed yet. It's Thursday. I have not heard his name anywhere yet. Why? Something must be, I don't know. I just don't know what it is. I am concerned with his age, hiring a guy that's never been a coordinator before, offensive or defensive, that, again, I still think it's on par of being a special teams guy still. But he's never been a head coach before. He's going to be 59 when the season begins. That's definitely an issue. But you want a guy that you feel can command the room, that can coach the team, that can make everybody around him better, that can command the respect of the room and the players, that could delegate when it's time to delegate, control when it's time to control, to be a head coach. Yes, this guy can do it. I don't think he's going to get the job. I would love for him to be interviewed. I think he's only been interviewed like 4 times in his career, which is shocking. But I'd really, really like to hear at some point in the next couple of days because time's running out because they got to start playing football next week. But I would love to hear that he is going to get an interview, and hopefully it'll be with the Jets. Okay, now let's go with the guy that I believe. Also, what on earth is going on with Matt Campbell? How is Matt Campbell? And this is important. If you've been listening to our network for years, you know how much my top two guys that are coming up. Campbell's one. I'll get to my top guy at the list next. That these two guys that I've talked about for years. Okay, this isn't about, oh, look, who's this guy in Iowa State made it to the Big 12 championship game. Wow, that's kind of nice. Who's this guy? Oh, he's okay. No, we have been on top of Matt Campbell for years. You know how much we like Matt Campbell. We talked about when they declined to be for the Jets job a couple of years ago. Is it because of ownership? Was it because he looked at the roster and who was running the roster and was like, that's a situation I want nothing to be a part of? Would he change his mind now because of the fact that now he goes, oh, wow, now they're shaped up a lot different? And it wasn't anything personal with the owners. It was about the structure of the team, who was making personnel decisions and all that other stuff. But why hasn't he been interviewed yet? And maybe he has. Maybe it's one of those things where he's telling people, hey, I don't want you to let anybody know let's not report this. I don't know. But how has Matt Campbell's name not been thrown around in a few days? Everybody talked about the possibilities of him being and should be at the top of everybody's list when Monday came around. It's Thursday and we haven't heard anything. I don't know what's going on there. And if he doesn't want to be a head coach in the NFL right now, then how come he hasn't said it? To just say it. He hasn't said anything. But this guy has everything going for him. He's got a great future as a coach, whether it's going to be college or the NFL. If you take a look at, the reason why I noticed this guy early because I used to even follow the Iowa State program when Dan McCarney was the head coach. That was the last successful head coach before he took over Campbell. And here was a game. Here's highlights right here of a game that started it all. They were a 31-point underdog in season 2 of the Matt Campbell regime. They go into Oklahoma, Big 12 powerhouse Oklahoma, as a 31-point dog. They had not lost because they had lost. And I'll get to that. I don't remember the exact number, but they had lost 18 straight or 17 straight or wherever it was, games to Oklahoma. And it had been 11, 12, 13 years where one of those losses was 10 points or less. So not only were they losing, by the way, that's Baker Mayfield. Not only were they losing to Oklahoma, they were never close. But this was a fun team too. Matt Campbell coached, and there he is. He coached David Montgomery, the Chicago running back, who's starting to now, who is the number one reason that Chicago's in the postseason. Not Khalil Mack, it's not Mitch Trubisky, it's Montgomery. And it's the offensive line giving him an opportunity to run through holes. But that's what's working for the Bears right now. You have Alan Lazard, who has turned into Aaron Rodgers' number 2 target. And he was a guy that didn't have the measurables coming out, but he sure was coached well at Iowa State. And that's what you do when you coach Iowa State. You take these kids that are 2 stars and 3 stars, and you get more out of their ability than the average head coach. Joel Lanning. I was a big fan of Joel Lanning's. Love this kid. This kid was a really good linebacker that could also play quarterback for Iowa State. So he did anything that Matt Campbell wanted. Joel Lanning did for the team. And but overall, you just look at this. Here it is. Prior to arriving at Iowa State, Iowa State had just one winning season in the previous 10. That was when McCarney was there. They played Oklahoma. What did they play him like 6 times, I believe? Where he's 2-4 against Oklahoma. There it is, 2-4. And it snapped their 18-game losing skid in his second try. Okay. 2-4 against Oklahoma. Every one of those games, every one of them, all 6 that he coached against Oklahoma, 10 points or less. All 6. And again, the previous 10 games, none of those losses were by 10 points or less. And he had lost 16 straight prior to him taking over. Or 18 straight prior to him taking... Well, actually, not prior to him, but it was 18 by the time they won that football game. So, I mean, he had success at Toledo, and he had it set up nice for him at Toledo, though. So it was set up nicely for him, and he did a really good job there, too. He kept the momentum going. And then he got the gig. And by the way, it's interesting. 5 years at Toledo, left to Iowa State. 5 years at Iowa State. Is he ready to leave now? So, and when he got the gig at Toledo, he was the youngest head coach in FBS football at the time. He was just 32 years old. So he's a young guy. I love the fact that he's only 41 years old. He's a proven program builder, someone that could take a bad team and coach them up. That's exactly what the Jets need. And when he was at Division III Mount Union, he was a part of championship teams there as a player. He knows how to win from that perspective. He knows what it takes. Yes, the major issue I have with him and with my next coach that I'm going to get to in a second is that both guys, as great as they have been in taking these small or these weaker college football programs and turned them into legitimate top 20 teams, the problem is neither coach has been able to get that team to a major bowl or not a major bowl. Well, Campbell's never been to a major bowl, but neither has been able to get them to a playoff game. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, well, let's put him on the board now. Let's stop the suspense. It's Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, he's the guy. Okay. If you take a look at Fitzgerald, Fitzgerald, actually, I was thinking about his Rose Bowl day when he was a player. Never got to play in the Rose Bowl, but Fitzgerald, I remember Fitzgerald. I've known him for such a long time. I know, and that's why I love Fitzgerald. I remember him as a player. He was one of those typical, middle linebacker, tough as nails guys that, Northwestern was under Gary Barnett. It was a great story. They get to the Rose Bowl. Fitzgerald breaks his leg the week before the Rose Bowl, or the game before the Rose Bowl. So he can't play in it. And that was actually the Keyshawn Johnson Rose Bowl. I'm pretty sure that was that game, because I remember Keyshawn Johnson went off on, I think it was Northwestern, and the rest was history with the Jets. That's why I remembered Keyshawn Johnson vividly. But anyway, with Fitzgerald, as a player, he was able to get the team to the Rose Bowl. As a coach, he has been able to get them to the Big Ten championship game, 2 in the last 3 years, but they haven't won the game, and they haven't taken that next step to a big bowl game, to a playoff game. So those are the only issues that I have with guys like Pat Fitzgerald or Matt Campbell. The reason I like Fitzgerald a little bit more than Campbell is because it's probably because of what I said a little while ago. I'm a defensive guy. Matt Campbell's an offensive coach. Fitzgerald's a defensive coach. So that's probably why I lean a little bit more towards Fitzgerald. I wouldn't even have Fitzgerald up here, and I wasn't even talking about him for the past month or two because I didn't think he was even interested. If you didn't want to get to the Packers 2 years ago with Aaron Rodgers, why on earth would you want a job now? But there's talk about that maybe he doesn't like the way things are going with within the university's higher ups and maybe the communication or his time there. Well, maybe this is maybe whether it's a good time for him to leave or not. I just felt, well, if he comes out, maybe he'd want to stay Chicago. But then the Bears made the playoffs. Well, does that mean that Nagy's still going to be there? What happens to get blown out by the Saints? Would it be shocking to see Nagy get fired and Fitzgerald be the head coach? Because that'd be perfect too, because he'd be able to stay in the area. The family's there. But if he is interested, if there's the slightest chance that Pat Fitzgerald is like, hey, I'll listen to what you have to say. It's not like, no, don't contact me. I have no interest. Apparently, that's not the case right now. Apparently, what the word is, I'm willing to listen. And if he's willing to listen, what is Joe Douglas waiting for? Why hasn't he interviewed this guy yet? What are you waiting for? You want a guy with head coaching experience, a guy that knows how to run his football team. You want a guy that has taken, like, talent-wise, the dregs, both these guys. Campbell could not have taken, besides Kansas, Iowa State. It's the only other football team in the Big 12 that is as bad as it gets with talent at the football in football, and yet Campbell's able to take Iowa State to a Big 12 championship game this year, and they're going to continue to succeed if he stays there. For Fitzgerald, 2 of the last 3 years, no team in the Big 12 has bigger issues or bigger obstacles to be successful than Northwestern. None of them. Illinois should be better. Indiana should be better. Northwestern should be at the bottom. And yet, he has not only been winning, he has gotten to the Big Ten championship game 2 of the last 3 years. That shows you what kind of a head coach he is. Yes, he's more defensive. I get that. But early on in his tenure, when he had success at Northwestern, they had a pretty decent offense for a year. They had a top 25 offense. So it's not like he always has inferior offensive players. He's only a defensive guy, that kind of deal. I wouldn't be worried about that. I just wouldn't. Okay, that's like me being worried about Mike Ditka being my head coach. Yeah, I know he's more concerned as a tough team and they're gonna defense and we're gonna be tough, and yeah, I get that, but I'm not worried about it because the guy's gonna win. He'll figure it out. And this is the NFL. And trust me, if Pat Fitzgerald were to become a head coach of a team in the NFL, especially in New York, you would not have a problem at all finding a really qualified offensive coordinator to run your team. So this is definitely the guy at the top of the list. There's just no question about it in my mind. I just would be shocked still if he made the switch. I know how much he loves his alma mater. It's his blood. It's sort of like Jim Harbaugh. That's what you're dealing with here. That's why these guys, Harbaugh and Fitzgerald, I mean, these guys love their universities, and it's hard to separate them from their alma maters. It's going to take a lot to do it. I don't know if it'll happen, but if you have a chance to make it happen and you have all the money in the world to make it happen, you need to go after this guy. And I had better hear that if Pat Fitzgerald or Matt Campbell ends up with interviews during this process, they had better be interviewed by the Jets. That's all I know. If they don't want to be interviewed by anybody, then what are you going to say? Nothing you could say about it. But if he's going to get the interview at some point somewhere, it better be with the Jets. Okay, now let's move on to the last few minutes. Let's move away from coaching because, again, I still believe that it's going to be at least, I'll say 10 days to 2 weeks. That's when the Jets will find their head coach. I don't think it's going to be next week. And I say that because from the looks of it, they still have a lot of potential candidates to go after. So I think it'll be, let's see, I would say I'm going to call for between the 18th and the 22nd, the Jets will have a head coach. Okay. Anything after that, and I'm going to start getting nervous. All right. Now, but we will talk more about that for sure, obviously. And that might even be our next show when the new head coach is on board. Now, Joe Douglas on Sam Darnold. Let's listen.
Look, we've got a lot of decisions to make. You know, I think that Sam's going to be a great quarterback. You know, I'm excited to get a head coach in here, go through our process. You know, I had a great conversation with Sam yesterday. I won't go into the specifics, but you know, I think Sam has a very bright future in this league.
Are you leaving yourself a little room there this time because it's uncertain with the coach, and do you want to just kind of leave yourself some room to make a decision based on what the new coach is going to think as well?
Look, any major decision that we have moving forward in terms of the roster, in terms of free agency, draft, anything, you know, our new head coach is going to be a big part of that moving forward. So I would definitely agree with that assessment.
All right. So right there, what I believe, I know that there are all fans, media, they think what they're getting out of that is that Joe Douglas is indicating, compared to the way that he stuck up for Sam Darnold the previous year, he's not sticking up for him this offseason, and that means that he's leaving the opening. That he's talking him up, but chances are he's not going to be back. I think he's just playing it the way that anybody would play it. I'm not looking at it either way. Does it mean he's definitely coming back? No. Does it mean he could be back? Yes. My gut is that he's going to return. That's what my gut is. My gut is thinking he will return. And I say that because I still do not believe that if he goes after any of these other quarterbacks with the second pick, unless he were to trade down, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do it, but maybe he can. The problem with, Josh Fields, what a tremendous, not only does Justin Fields tear up Clemson, but now he tears up Alabama for a national championship. And his stock is through the roof. He's going to command a heavy price tag if you want to draft and trade up for him. But who's going to, I don't know whether or not, like, where you're going to go. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to do that. I really don't. I don't know if there's going to be a team early that will say, we got to go after him. And the Jets would move down to a certain spot, because I don't think the Jets can. I think if the Jets are going to move down, they have to. There are too many talented players out there in the top 10 and maybe even earlier that I think the Jets, boy, would it have to be such an awesome deal. I mean, they would have to command so much back in a deal if somebody wanted Fields and the Jets were willing to trade down a little bit. I don't know whether or not you'd be able to do it unless you got completely like Mitch Trubisky-like kind of deal, compensation. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know if anybody is going to do that. If they did, then great. I just don't know. And unless that happens and you can get those extra picks and you can still get a pretty good pick somewhere in the top 10, top 12, and an extra pick early. Now you've got, say, 3 picks in the first round and 2 of them relatively early. Then, yeah, you could use one of those picks on a quarterback. I don't know if that's going to happen, but unless that happens, I don't think the Jets, the way they are right now, I don't care what Fields does against Alabama. You cannot tell me that anybody believes that he is going to be like a can't miss guy. And if you look and hear about the way everybody talks about Sam Darnold, they're going to say maybe the same thing about Fields. So what's the difference? Because now you've got Darnold. You know who he is. He's in your building. You know how the kid is. You don't know Fields until he steps into the building and you hang around with him in practice and what kind of a player is he. And you can hear from what other people say, but you don't know it until you see it. But you do know Sam Darnold. And I do believe that there's a lot of like there on Sam Darnold. You know, he handles himself well. Sam Darnold has everything you want in a quarterback, except the results haven't been there yet on the field. He's got everything else you're looking for, though. the toughness, the work ethic, everything. He's got some decent athletic ability. The only thing is on the field production. And I think Joe Douglas feels that if he builds the team properly around Sam, he's only 23. So if he builds the team around Sam and gives him one more season where he's got a better offensive line and an even better running game and a better receiving core and a better football team, hey, all right, we'll give it one more year. We bring in another coach. We bring in another coordinator. Because if by the third guy, if Sam Darnold doesn't get it, he's never getting it. Then it's okay, because this was your fifth and final year. That's it. You're gone. But I just, I don't know. I mean, you know how I feel about Sam, but the way I'm guessing Joe Douglas is going to handle this is that, because I think he's going to go, if I go after a quarterback with that second pick, and I already have one that could turn out to be a really good quarterback, that means now I am going to take a really either one or because again I could trade down. I look at what kind of a premium player I could have at that spot. That's not a quarterback. You can continue to build your offensive line with the kid from Oregon. You can go after a running back if you want. If you say, hey, I want the best running back in the class. You can go with wide receiver. I want the best wide receiver in the class. Here you've got. That's why I was saying, if you trade down even just a few spots, if somebody wants to take Fields and you get a great deal, let's say it's 5 and 6 or whatever, then you could still end up with the top running back, the top wide receiver. So those, I mean, he's going to be able to build a better team around Darnold and give him one more year. And he already has capital for next season. Really good draft capital. Again, he already has 2 more first-round draft picks for next year. So he can say, I'm going to give him one more year. I'm going to see if this was more about Gase and talent than Darnold. Okay, if we build a talent around him, and a fresh offensive coordinator mind comes in, that could help out Darnold. Not that Darnold has to turn into a superstar, but just show enough improvement next year with better players around him that he's the guy, that you can re-sign him to an extension after next year. And now now you can continue to build, and all of a sudden, you're more of your picks that you have last year continue to build around him. But if it fails, you've got good capital next year that you can use that capital to either draft a quarterback, or maybe you could even trade some of that capital for an actual proven quarterback in the league. I don't know who that would be. I'm not going to get into that right now. But the bottom line is, you can still give Sam one more year, but it's all up to the head coach too. And I think the head coach is, without question, going to be simpatico with Joe Douglas on what to do with Sam. I have a feeling that Joe can go either way. I have a feeling that Joe would rather do what I said. But if a head coach, let's say he's in total love with, I don't know, one of the best guys on the market, whoever he believes that is, and that guy is his number one coaching candidate, and that guy says, everybody loves everybody, but I don't want Sam Darnold. I want to go after Fields. I want to go after whatever. I want another quarterback. I think Joe Douglas would do it. I don't think it's going to be a game breaker. That's my feeling. So in closing, we'll talk more about that and much more. But this schedule for the Jets looks awfully good next year. You got the Bengals. You got the Jags. You have Atlanta. You have Carolina. You have Denver. So this schedule is going to be a lot better than last year's. The last couple of years, we had talk about a guy that had no luck, is Adam Gase. I mean, not only did he have murderous schedules, but he had no talent and he had a banged up quarterback and injuries. He had injuries to his team. He had a crappy schedule, and his quarterback didn't play well. So he had no chance. So hopefully the next head coach for the Jets, already the schedule opens up nicely for this new head coach. It's a good schedule. You have to really like it. And the fans had better be at these games this year, or else there was going to be more of what you saw last night, not only in the nation's capital, but all over. If they don't start allowing us to get back to these football games by September. But if we do, there are some pretty good home games, depending if Drew Brees comes back, Tom Brady, that's nice. So, Derrick Henry in Tennessee, Joe Burrow coming to town, Trevor Lawrence coming to town. So that's a pretty good home schedule for fans to check out. And also, there are some pretty winnable games too. So it's a nice schedule. All right. Anyway, we are going to return at some point with Jan Levine. That's our next show. More than likely, it's going to be when the head coach is announced, and then we'll have an opportunity to break that down, take an early look ahead at free agency and all of that. It is going to be a wild ride here on Jets FM all the way through to the NFL draft. That's what it's all about here at ourlads.com. So we're looking forward to it. I'm going to tons of material for everybody to look over, breaking down players at all different positions, whether it's free agency, but definitely the draft. So this is going to be the time, once the season is officially over, we can all take a look with the, well, first let's get a head coach in, but after that, and let's hope it's somebody we want, a head coach. Then we got to look ahead at free agency and the draft. And for a team with excellent salary cap space and draft capital, it's going to be a lot of fun covering the team all the way through till the end of April. So I'm looking forward to doing it. Thanks for tuning in here at Jets FM on the OFN, and we'll see you next time.